going on, everyone? We are back once again, Thursday, May the 18th, with another edition of Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast. It is a throwback Thursday, and I'm accompanied by my usual co host on Throwback Thursdays. I pointed the wrong direction. That is you, Anthony Ricciardi, head of opinions. How are you on this fine Thursday, my friend?
I'm doing all right. I mean, Clark, you're not used to pointing because it's usually just you and I. So you're excused for the mix up there.
The mirroring,
you know how I look forward to doing these ones. It's a little bit of a somber throwback one, which we were planning to do prior to the news last night. Anyway, once we heard his Billy Graham's health wasn't that great, but we were doing this anyway.
Absolutely, and rest in peace, superstar Billy Graham, unbelievable wrestling figure, all-time legend, absolutely, and best wishes to his family and everything. And then we'll get into honoring him as best we possibly can.
Yep.
At the end of the show, after we covered AEW Dynamite from last night, but we're also accompanied by super producer and head of reviewing. I'm still pointing at you, Kobe Galanzowski, this time. How are you this afternoon, Kobe?
I'm doing fine. I'm dealing with cold weather, but woke up. It was pretty cold up here, but I'm got good. Wrestling happened. We got Dynamite last night. We just found a new Dynamite reviewer. So if you were looking for a reviewer, we now have one at WrestlingRepublic.com. After Clark said "screw Dynamite," I'm kidding. You didn't know. You never said "screw Dynamite."
It was not like that. Oh.
You invite one person, Clark, and they throw you under the bus on the throwback.
No, I deserve the jab from Kobe because he was so chill about it. You know what I mean? I left him hanging in a couple times, but it's Daniel, right? That's on Dynamite now.
So he was on yesterday's daily broadcast of David Sheldon.
Yes, or David Sheldon. By the way, oh my goodness, yeah, it's David Sheldon, and I'm sure the review was awesome. I have not had the chance to read the article, but thankfully I did watch the show, and we'll cover it. And I'm gonna guess, Kobe, as head of reviewing, you read the article. Just gonna.
I had to. It was
just gonna guess exactly.
I gotta give him some tidbits.
Boom goes the Dynamite, and me and Anthony watched the show. So,
yep.
Bang bang choo choo train. We're off and running. Let's get right into it. We've got the CM Punk situation. Kobe, you ready to read the statement? You ready for this read?
Yeah,
Let's go.
Okay, so Ben Allison reported on WrestlingRepublic.com. CM Punk slams wrestling journalist following report. So the report that was said, PW Insider and later echoed by the Wrestling Observer and Brian Alvarez, they kind of suggested that AEW is encountering difficulties in rehiring CM Punk due to Punk wanting the company to rehire Ace Steel. We're not saying we believe that. We're not saying that's the truth. That was what the report said. And typically on a massive day for AEW with a lot of the big announcements with AEW Collision and the next, I think they said the 5 out of 6 dates, including, next week they'll announce the very first one. CM Punk used his Instagram story as a platform to kind of speak out about this. So CM Punk made it abundantly clear that he believed Brian Alvarez, the host of The Observer Live, had lacked a comprehensive understanding of the situation. So this is what he said on his Instagram story. Look, everyone, Brian Alvarez doesn't like when misinformed internet trolls make up rumors about him, so please stop making rumors and stories for clicks while Brian makes up rumors and stories for clicks, okay? He's married, for God's sakes. By God, that man has a family. That was his first story, and then as well as adding fuel to his posts, CM Punk told fans that they should stop talking about him returning to AEW, saying, "Friendly reminder, I haven't been on TV in 9 months, and y'all still can't stop talking about me. Maybe stop, you'll feel better. Love, hate, it's all the same. I don't enjoy being the sole person that props up entire misinformed clickbait industry based on toxic group from lying sources. But what can you do? When you're the king, it comes with a crown. So with these remarks, CM Punk has shed light on his side of the story, providing fans with a glimpse into his frustrations. As the wrestling community eagerly awaits further developments, it remains to see what actions CM Punk and AEW are going to be taking. He's either going to return as a part of AEW Collision or he won't return entirely. And only time will tell whether that happens or not.
Okay, Kobe, this is one of the lowest points of my professional career in production. It's this one, right? I got it right. Never mind. We're back. It's a more of a midpoint. Thank you so much, dude. That read is off the charts. There's a lot to unpack here, right? I'm gonna start there and then toss it to you, Anthony, obviously, to get your opinion on this. Personally, and yes, Ben Allison shouting out Kobe and the super producer, as usual. Love that. What about us though, Ben? Just kidding.
Yeah, it's a special occasion. I'm here on a Thursday.
In all seriousness, this is one of those things where, man, it's been so up in the air for so long just to get like a nugget and not to even like harken back to the classic Shawn Michaels Owen Hart nugget promo. But just to get even a nugget is always nice. But this is nothing more than a nugget. This is nothing more than that. This is nothing deeper than that in my eyes, right? That this in my eyes is negotiations are still happening. They're still talking about it, and nothing has been determined on either side 100% or even 50% the other way. We're looking at gray area, and that's always hard to navigate. Always difficult to navigate. But Anthony, I want to get your thoughts.
I mean, from the beginning with the CM Punk disaster after Brawl Out, my feeling was always torn between two things. One, I didn't think he'd come back only for the fact with his own ego and the Elite's ego. I wasn't sure if all the parties involved would be able to put it aside. I know, Clark, you were adamant that he was definitely coming back. And my caveat was always, as long as he's under AEW contract, which as far as we all know, he was never released or fired from AEW, legally, he can be forced to come back. I mean, he does have a binding contract. In theory, they could force him back. A lot of this stuff, for him feuding with Alvarez, I don't care. Him taking shots at dirt sheet writers, they make their money reporting or making up stories about CM Punk because, again, it's clickbait. That's exactly what it is. Even if they don't know, they go, well, the latest update is we don't know anything. That's really not an update. But, for me, Punk popping up backstage on a Raw or popping up at a New Japan show or backstage at Impact, I really think he probably is coming back, and I think the medium is the fact that him and the Elite are not going to be anywhere near one another. Clark and I did a Take It to the Table. We discussed a lot of this that'll eventually come out. I really think that the intention is to keep Punk and the Elite separate, especially if they really can't work together. I'm not convinced that he's not coming in for a Collision. It makes sense why you drop his name off of the press release. You got to create a belief that he's not coming back. I mean, it's possible it's legitimate, that there is legitimate issues between them. But at this point with Punk, him knowing how to work people, it could just be that. As long as he's under contract, it's entirely possible he's coming back.
I really hear where you're coming from, but I do want to say this. And I think I'm not disagreeing with you at all, because you're absolutely right, especially with what you presented about the reasons why it's so difficult to get him back. But we've overlooked the fact that it's totally possible that it's all true. And when I mean it's all true, I mean both sides of the rumors. That the story in the narrative is changing day to day in negotiations between both sides. But at the end of the day, those negotiations haven't come to a head. They haven't decided on anything. And it's hard to wrap your head around, maybe, almost always, in almost any situation. Maybe is such a hard concept for people to have to consider, especially in wrestling. And I think that's where we're really at. I think there's truth in almost all of it. I think every little nugget we've gotten, there's some truth to. People's feelings were hurt on both sides. The locker room was upset. But we're also talking about a lot of adults. And CM Punk, a lot of money. This is something that you'd think, I don't care how big your ego is, you'd be able to put it aside. Right? This is one of those situations. It's very few and far between in wrestling where I've seen success in not being able to put your ego aside. Right? Maybe I would argue Shawn showing up Hogan because he wasn't able to put his ego aside in their SummerSlam match is the perfect example. That's the result you get. If we can't all figure that out, we can't all be on the same team. What in the world are we doing here? And at the end of the day, I think it comes down to Tony Khan and CM Punk need to figure out what's going to work best, roster split or not, wherever he's going to be, whichever show he's going to be on, whether he can work with the elite or not, but back on television. We are way too mature for this at this point. As wrestling fans, even. It's ridiculous. Brock Lesnar came back, right? Bobby Lashley came back. CM Punk came back already once. We saw it, you know? Injury related, not left the industry related. Bryan Danielson came back. Edge came back. We're rooting for Randy Orton to come back. There's no reason CM Punk doesn't come back this time around. Otherwise, we're getting robbed of more years of quality performances. And as a fan, I just don't want to see it. And I truly believe that they can work it out. On that same note,
I do have one question for you. I'd like to get your take on this. Let's say Punk does come back. If there is another blow up, whether with the elite or somebody else, is that it for him at that point? Like if there's another colossal disaster backstage, is that the end of his career? Is there any coming back because he's already got this black eye now?
To be completely honest, I'm gonna actually toss this one to the comments section. Tracy Martin with "They gotta grow up and be adults."
True.
And I think that's the answer there. There can't be another blow up like that.
That's what I'm saying.
Not to that extent.
Is there?
But also at the same time, blow ups happen, and realistically, we haven't seen enough fallout that says it's as bad as how juicy the reports were out of the gate.
Ace Steel biting Omega.
I mean, that's what they said. That's what we talked about. But and Ace lost his job, and that's wish the best for Ace. But like outside of that, I mean, the Bucks and Kenny re-won the trios titles.
Yeah.
I mean, Hangman Page.
That's the best part. It all started with the Hangman promo, and he's the only one that's like untouched by any of it.
I mean,
and realistically, he wasn't suspended because he wasn't there. He wasn't there to be involved.
I don't see the same irony, only because realistically, like that could have been a work as much as anything. The rest of the speech felt shootish, but you never know with this stuff, right? And sticking to your guns. I mean, I don't know. I understand like a lot of red lights flashing, but we've seen a lot of returns. I'm sure the same red flags were flown for Brock when he was in the UFC and trying out for the Vikings and chasing all of that stuff. I'm sure the same were for The Rock when he was an A-list movie star and then came back and wrestled at Mania and did all of that. To put it on Punk just because there was a backstage altercation There's been backstage altercations with almost every wrestler we could possibly name.
Clark, it wasn't the backstage altercation. It was the press conference. The press conference is what took it over the top.
Even then, but over the top of what? It's pro wrestling,
It
right?
was a press conference that he shot on the executives of the company, saying they were incompetent. Like, shoot or
We're in
not.
pro wrestling. I think we're overthinking that one. I
don't think so.
I think
at the end of the day, it doesn't look good. If you're going to sit there and say,
but I think
work or shoot,
I think we've
CM Punk saying your executive vice presidents are incompetent. Work or shoot, it's still not a good look.
Of course,
this is the same thing that he posted about Mock before.
A good look in which regard? Because
for the company
and business wise,
the brand.
But given the timing, if Punk isn't out for 7 months and he's carrying the title, I mean, by the way, we can go back and talk about how great Stone Cold shooting at the company was. I mean, right? He talked about the WWE holding him down. They arrested him on air. We did all that during the biggest era ever. Shooting on the company. Well, oh wait, no,
that was storyline. That was not shoot. That was a shoot.
It never pointed. You don't like the painted WWE.
Listen, I'm fine with the lines being blurred, but it seems pretty clear that the only person blurring the lines was Punk and no one else was in on it.
I mean, I don't know. Same with Matt Hardy, right?
If they're able to make it into an angle, turn the real life situation into a shoot or work, I'm fine with that. But really, the money match is Punk and Hangman because that's what the supposed catalyst of this thing is. But we got no evidence that either one of them would be willing to work together.
I disagree that that's the money match. I really
think how is it?
I think the money match is CM Punk and FTR versus the Elite. By far, that's the money match.
Why wouldn't it be Hangman? Because that's the initial spark that lit this thing.
Because he didn't fight Hangman backstage in the locker room. The story that they told us about what happened in the locker room that we never seen footage of. None of us truly know exactly what happened. But the money match is those three working against each other.
FTR
and Punk versus
FTR wasn't even involved with it.
They sprinted back from the Marriott
when everything was done.
They said that. Dak said that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying, like that's the money match.
I don't think
so. I mean, the Hangman Page CM Punk story got told. They had a main event, 25-minute main event match. Punk won the title. Like that, they told that story.
I think the shoots that they could have now will be a hell of a lot more interesting than the Elite and FTR and Punk. I just don't. I prefer one-on-one anyway. I think that's a better match than a 6-man.
Definitely. And we got another comment from Drizzy Martin. A lot of that was reaction from Punk. We wouldn't have even known there was a problem with Punk and Hangman if Punk never reacted.
Exactly.
It's an excellent point, Drizzy, and that's why I think that doesn't make it the money match, Anthony, not to keep arguing with you, but
I don't see how it's not.
We wouldn't have known that there was a problem between Hangman and Punk if Punk doesn't address it at the press conference.
Well, no, we
fought the Elite at the press conference. He didn't.
No, we do know. We do know because Punk went out and called Hangman out on a Dynamite when he wasn't even in a feud with him. That's how we knew. It was pre-press conference.
Yeah, but it was a one-line jab. I mean, that's. So to argue that would be the money match, that's something but that's something that a small portion of the audience catches. So to argue that would be the money match doesn't make sense. The large portion of the audience is reading these stories about the Elite fighting Punk and his friends. Now you have Punk and FTR versus the Elite, right? The casual audience, like WWE fans, people who are just now seeing it, read all the drama. They know about Punk from the WWE. They know about the fight in the locker room. They don't know about the Hangman Page story. That was a throwaway line in the middle of a promo, in the middle of the summer, in the middle of a show. That was, yes, it was a shoot, and it was wrong of Punk to do, for sure. No doubt. It was wrong of Hangman to talk crap about not taking advice too, probably. And I like both guys. I'm a fan of both. But I do disagree that it's the money match because that's a storyline that only I think the hardcore fan base recognizes out of
really,
what came out of it.
Yeah, but FTR has no role in it other than they're friends with Punk.
But
Like,
everyone knows
realistically,
that.
there's no tie to any of that.
I mean, the money match is Omega and Punk, not a trio.
No, I don't think so.
It's Omega and the Bucks.
I'd put that over the trios.
Omega and the Bucks versus Punk and FTR is.
I don't think FTR has
electric.
They don't.
That is enormous. That is as big as you. That is big as you can build, especially threw a chair at my face, bit me, did all this, whatever. Right, all three versus, and then FTR running over. We know that story. That even touches on our casual fan heartstrings too. If you know that story, if you add it, kind of like the Hangman story, if you were to tell that on air, which they've never done. Right, there's been no reason to do because the rivalry was over by the time it happened. It was a throwaway line
Punk
on television during a rivalry with Punk and Moxley. It was a throwaway line during a rivalry between Punk and John Moxley. It was setting up for Punk versus Moxley at AEW All Out 2022.
I get that.
It had nothing to do with Hangman Page. Yeah, he briefly messaged him in the promo, but he mentioned him, and then you have Colt Cabana as well. Like, is Colt Cabana the money match? I don't get it.
No, I didn't say Colt Cabana's the money match.
I'm just saying, like, he mentioned him
too.
To
me, that's...
But who did you get in the fight with backstage? It can't be both, right? Was it a shoot, or was it a work, or what was it?
The guy that started the whole thing by going into business for himself in a promo, I think that's the money match. I think you could build behind that. You could tell the story. I have way more interest in seeing Hangman and Punk going at it in a war than I do FTR and Punk against the Elite. That doesn't do anything for me, honestly.
All right.
And I know the whole Black story. I have no interest in it.
Okay, I totally get that. And then, yeah. I mean, I strongly disagree with you on that one, but that's not the point. We will move on to the next segment. We got the Wardlow promo and the Brian Cage beatdown. Want to get both you guys' thoughts. I'll toss it to you, Anthony, first. What did you think about this segment?
I got to be honest, the Wardlow Christian feud, I don't know. I'm not overly into it. I know what they're doing. Oh, they're going to do a ladder match because Christian's famous for ladder matches. I still don't fully get the Luchasaurus Christian dynamic. I don't really get that. And I think Wardlow really needs a type of feud to really kind of make it relevant because, as we've talked about multiple times, the TNT title is being hot potatoed and it doesn't really have any prestige. So him picking up a win over Christian in a Christian match makes sense unless they decide to hot potato it again and Christian gets the belt this time.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's weird having Christian involved in this. And I don't know how much of a threat he even should be to Wardlow in the first place. And then Cage's involvement is even weirder. What do you feel about this one, Kobe?
I mean, I 100% agree with that statement. It is like the TNT title has been hot potatoed and someone needs to give it that prestige. Whether you can disagree or not, Orange Cassidy has put in the work with the international, the All-Atlantic turned international championship of AEW. He's put in the work and he's really built that title. The TNT title still feels like one of the least valuable titles in wrestling right now. It does. So Wardlow coming out and Christian being that, I don't want to say that catalyst, but a Wardlow versus Christian match is bigger than Wardlow versus Luchasaurus. I like the fact that it's a potential ladder match. I think they can deliver. I understand Christian can carry and help Wardlow through the entire match. I think this can either go one way. This is one of those big wins for Wardlow, and this title reign has to mean something with Wardlow having the TNT title, or Christian gets the victory at Double or Nothing, and Christian walks out of it and is the one to add prestige to this title.
I hear that for sure, especially the prestige thing. Although at the same time, as much as it's been hot potatoed, to call it the least valuable over the I mean, we trash the international title pretty hard on this show and have like of late, right, Cope? I would argue, and I go to bat for OC often, but I would argue that the TNT still has a little more luster than the international belt. Right, the second, that'd be the only thing that I would like kind of check you on there.
Maybe.
No, right? Like,
I mean, that's that like
yeah.
if we are saying that's a smidge, that's personal perception.
Yeah, just like a touch over, but I hear where you're. Whoa, where did Anthony go?
He's frozen.
Is he back? Oh, he is.
He's frozen.
Okay. Well, either way, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where I hear where you're coming from on the TNT title. It's supposed to be a television title. Awesome. Wait. Are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Perfect. It's supposed to be a television title. Wardlow being a 3-time champ feels like stat padding. I feel like they're kind of trying to tie Cody on that amount of times carrying it thing, the way they've hot potatoed it of late, with considering Darby won it, given you know what I mean?
Like this year, I think.
Yeah, they're giving out reigns to try to stack the list.
Would it be 6?
Is it 6?
Because Joe started it, Darby
Goodness
won, Joe
gracious.
won.
Okay, by the way,
Wardlow
even
beat
5.
Joe, Hobbs, and then more. Yeah, so I think
all right,
6 championship reigns if you're counting the one entering the year, but 5 title changes.
100%.
That's what I was saying.
Off of memory.
That's
off of memory.
I mean, it's so interesting. What did you guys think about Lee Moriarty and Big Bill? Let's get that out of the way quickly.
I didn't care.
Same, not much.
Honestly, I don't care.
Kobe, you got anything to add on that one?
I mean, it seemed like. I mean, that's the thing. This is going off of like all I got is the review. David actually enjoyed it.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, take that with what you will. I mean, the end of the match comes when Cassidy hits the beach break into a coffin drop from Allen.
Yep.
Darby finishes Moriarty with a side headlock takedown into a pin, and direct reference down Darby's history with MJF.
Yep.
This was a good match with all 4 guys doing work with a very hot crowd, but felt a touch, slapdash, and a little unnecessary with how much it already is or in the card. Still a fun opener, though, and Darby and Cassidy are a great team. See, it seemed like it could have been a fun match. I mean, don't put too much in it. It's one of those matches, just like it's booked to get Darby and Orange Cassidy on the card. Big Bill and Lee Moriarty obviously aren't gaining anything from this match.
I'm going to do a new segment brought to you by a sponsor that we don't have yet, but whoever would like to sponsor this segment. It's called One Final Take, and I'm going to say Big Bill needs a better name. And we're going to move on.
I don't know why it changed.
Horrible name.
Nobody knows why it changed to Big Bill.
Okay. Remember to sponsor that One Final Take. Sponsor that segment, whoever it is. Brought to you by...
Sponsor yourself.
Exactly. Either way, Jungle Boy versus Roosh is up next. Roosh is on steroids. I'm going to start with that. How does he have all that stuff on his back? It's very obvious. How he's in any wellness program, I could never understand. Makes a lot more sense that he was not signed alongside Dragon Lee the more I see him wrestle. I mean, it's very clear.
Dragon Lee is so much better of a talent than Roosh is. Honestly, that's always been the problem. I always felt Roosh was overrated. I mean, I don't know. It's for me, I've just never really cared for Roosh. I mean, going into this, you and I had that conversation where it's like, well, clearly Jungle Boy's winning this. I mean, he's the one that's in line for a title shot. So, I mean, it was a fine match for what it was, but nothing over the top for me.
1000%. Kobe, you got anything to add on this one? I mean, Jungle Boy always looks great to me, but this was, I think, just a match to feature Roosh on Dynamite with no story, but like 2 good wrestlers wrestling on Dynamite.
I mean, yeah, that's the point. And like, obviously, we just finished up very briefly with OC and Darby versus the firms Lee and Big Bill. This match is like Roosh is going to get something out of this match, unlike the firms talent. Roosh got something out of this match. He just had a match with one of the main event talent in the world title picture. That Double or Nothing is a part of the 4-way. But I was almost slightly more interested in what happened after. And you can see that they were beating down Jungle Boy and then Darby, and as well, Sammy Guevara made the save, and Sammy's taking that tweening position in this story. And it's like now Sammy's like, I want to make sure MJF loses. Obviously, it'd be a stupid decision for MJF to lose the title at Double or Nothing, but it's still an somewhat of an interesting way to go, despite Sammy, like, we don't really know his direction concurrently.
100%. I mean, and also, by the way, in the comments, my mom, huge fan of Jungle Boy. So, me as well. I mean, we got to get Jack Perry. We got to start calling him Jack Perry, too, by the way. I keep messing that up. But it's Jack Perry. It's not Jungle Boy anymore. But I think
What's Jungle Boy Jack Perry?
it is technically, but I still think it's time for it to be Jack Perry. And
Jack Perry's more adult.
I
It's
really
more of a
do
next
believe
step.
in him. I really do believe in him, and I believe he can turn the corner. But I think it's time for him to finally fully do so.
I do love the fact that JR got such crap when he referred to him as Jack Perry back in the day. And now it's like, oh, no, we are going to use Jack Perry now. I'm like, well, that is his name, so why wouldn't you?
Yeah, Jim Ross called it years ago. But let's move on to another good one.
Mhm.
Jay White, Bullet Club Gold or whatever that is,
Yeah.
versus Ricky Starks, who I love. And I wish this was a different situation. I didn't want Ricky to be on the other side of this. It didn't make sense to me. Ricky deserves better. I really like Ricky Starks, but Jay White's so dang good. I don't know. I didn't have a problem with it. I was very entertained by the match. It was good. But it's too good of wrestlers against each other to tell the story that needed to be told. I'm going to go to you, Anthony, though. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem for me with Jay White is because I know how big of a star he was in Japan, and I know how good of a talent. And, you're trying to do Bullet Club, their version of Bullet Club. And the thing is, it's not a real threat. It's two guys. It's Juice Robinson and him. So there's no major threat. Like, to me, like, his first feud, honestly, should have been against Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy, to me, is the guy that he should have been feuding with because he wants a belt. Let him get it let him go. I'm an international star. This is supposed to be the international title. It should be mine. It's Jay White's. That's the smart play. Have the feud with Jay White and Orange. To me, that's the more logical choice than him against Ricky Starks or him against Ricky Starks and Shawn Spears. No, I like Ricky Starks, but realistically, that doesn't make sense to be his first target. That's just my opinion. I would have put the belt on Jay White and then have Ricky Starks feud with him for the title. That makes more sense.
I hear that. My only fear is I feel like it would be too obvious having Jay White be there just to make that international title fresh out of New Japan. Like it's a great link and it's a good story, but it's almost too obvious. I almost would rather him go after the TNT belt.
Oh, the hot potato title of wrestling, yes.
I know, but kind of establish it because he's been a guy that's carried.
Someone has to.
Reestablish. He's carried a belt for a long time. Television-wise, he can work every week. He can work with a lot of different styles. I hear exactly where you're coming from, but I just alternate perspective on it. I think somewhere there's so many different things you can do with Jay White. We haven't even gotten to it yet, but the Elite, and even Adam Cole's storyline, Jay White can be, he's got ties to it, right? He's got fingerprints on both in a sense. And if he could be inserted there, I don't know. Kobe, what do you?
I got one thing in direct to what kind of Anthony said. It's like he should come out of the gate with the international championship feud. The one thing I say is Ricky Stark got that big victory with over at the time Chris Jericho, And then it was just like, okay, Ricky versus Juice Robinson. Jay White returns. This feud is now about. It's not necessarily about Ricky Starks, which sucks, but this feud is now about developing and introducing the Bullet Club Gold, or whatever you're going to call it, as a threat. And I think that's what's key in this, because that makes it a key for Orange Cassidy if you're going to feud with that. Because then you can do, if you have a third, I think.
Best friends.
Well, yeah, you get best
logically,
friends
right?
Cassidy.
You get best friends.
I think
with
New
Orange
Japan,
Cassidy.
I think David Finlay kicked out El Fantasmo. So I think if he's coming to the States and he's going to be that third member, we have a complete trio that can feud and be put in that position against Orange Cassidy. And I think that's good. Necessarily, it sucks because Ricky's going from such a big, I guess, a big win from Jericho twice, because he got the one on the one Dynamite, and then he got the pay-per-view victory. And then it's like, well, now your job is establishing the Bullet Club Gold. Kind of sucks, but I think that's the purpose of not pushing him into Orange Cassidy right away. I 100% agree that that is a move to be made in the future. That could be made. And then the other one I said on Monday is it could either be Jay White, or the other name I said was Konosuke Takeshita, if you're going him heel with Don Callis. If you're AEW and you want that Japanese star to be big, I think he can dethrone OC as well.
What do you think about that, Anthony?
I don't know what they want to do with Takeshita. I mean, honestly, he's on the outside looking in with this whole elite reunion that we'll eventually get to. I don't know. Honestly, with Takeshita, I'd put him in Ring of Honor. I really don't think there's a spot for him on AEW TV right now. I mean, when they split the brands, maybe there's a spot, but realistically, where are you putting him? Like, realistically, like, I don't know if he has the mic skills, so I almost feel like he needs a manager.
Don Callis.
Yeah, he would have to turn him heel to do it. But, you know, if they're going to keep him as a face, they're going to have to give him a manager. He's not going to get over without a mouthpiece.
I think as a face, the mouthpiece would do the opposite, and that would be what would that'd be what would turn him heel, right? And honestly, given the violence of his moveset and the strong style that he works,
he still has to talk, though.
I think he's
to
logical.
Get over in the States, you kind of need to.
I don't necessarily know. Given this one, he's been over because of the matches that he's had. Like, he was cheered hard in LA. I think you put Callis's mouth on him, and the violence that he can provide, and add him to the Blackpool Combat Club, he fits better than members that are already in. And I'm not trying to knock Wheeler Yuta. I actually like Wheeler Yuta in my own way, but if I had to pick one, Takeshita makes more sense than Wheeler does. You know what I mean? It's a little bit like, to me, actually, Daniel Garcia makes more sense than almost anyone for the Blackpool Combat Club, if that's going to be what we lean into. With Callis leading it, it's so different, because even Regal had integrity, and that I actually thought there was a disconnect on. When they initially booked it. Regal's got integrity, and he's so well respected that the violence was part of the story, but there wasn't like a real connection other than we all love William Regal. If it's now, we've got the Jekyll, we've got
the Jackal.
We've got the Jackal, we've got Don Callis, the scum of the earth, the slimiest slime ball running it, and you have a crew of violent killers, for lack of a better term, right? Pure violent performers. I dig that. And if Takeshita can be a part of it, given his offensive moveset, which I don't even think fits a babyface, some of the moves he delivers bell to bell are freaking violent. Like, he's out there, he's not doing the hammer and anvil like the whole Blackpool Combat Club's been doing this whole time, but the knee strikes, the kicks, the forearm strikes, they're so snug and they're so stiff. He fits perfect the aesthetic and then you put the mouthpiece on it. I love it. Anthony, final thoughts on that one?
The thing with Don Callis, and I remember originally saying to you on one of the Thursday ones when we reviewed it, I said I had a feeling Don Callis was going to turn and probably with Blackpool Combat Club. The thing I find interesting is both last week when he turned and even last night when they popped out, he disappeared. Don Callis disappeared when Combat Club came out. He was cutting the promo. Kenny came out. It was the security thing, and then they took Omega out. Don disappeared. So they've purposely been playing this out where it's, okay, Don's not there, but I still think he's the quote-unquote invisible hand behind the new Blackpool Combat Club. But I think they're smart playing this out of like, he's not, but like any observers that people can kind of get it going, no, they're popping out every time he's there. There's got to be something there. Just like when Punk was WWE champion with Heyman as his manager and the Shield was getting involved in all his title matches. Oh, no. And then it was like, no, they're hired guns of Punk to maintain his title reign. I think it's following along the same lines as my thought.
I love the point you made about the cowardice of him not being there while his guys kind of fight for him. And it's funny, before I toss it back to you, either of you, whoever, comment on this. I think a stone left unturned is the only better option than Callis for this story to lead the Blackpool Combat Club. Is Dan Lambert would have been great. Dan Lambert would have been perfect for this. The MMA coach, he stole him from Regal. You can tell that story without ever saying Lord Regal's name. I'm the scummy promoter. I'm the scummy MMA guy. I stole away your talent, and now we've got all the best coaches in the world. You can bring Masvidal back into the fold, who just retired. You can bring Kayla Harrison into the fold. You can bring maybe PVZ, maybe not. I don't know. Depends. But that is the only one. He fit that aesthetic so perfect.
I don't think it.
American Top Team.
I don't think
in MMA, American Top Team is the Blackpool Combat Club.
I don't think it works better because it makes sense the feud with the Elite with Don being in there. There's no sense with Lambert. What's the sense of
it's too
Lambert?
Parallel to real life. So the Blackpool Combat Club, the way that they would be perceived right now under Don Callis, that's how American Top Team, Dan Lambert's team in mixed martial arts, is perceived. That's how they're viewed. They're the big juggernaut. They're the ass kickers. They're the fighters. They've got the big gym though with all the training. They go in there and they grind. Lambert is, I wouldn't call him cocky. I'm a huge fan of Dan Lambert myself personally. I have a mountain of respect for that man. And what he's accomplished in mixed martial arts, it's incredible. But he's driven, and there are people that will call him cocky or arrogant. And part of that is due to his success. Given the real life parallels, American Top Team to MMA is with the Blackpool Combat Club, Brian Danielson, I apologize, John Moxley, even Claudio. That's what those three kind of represent. They're the juggernauts that, might actually got overlooked when they were in the big balloon. When they were in the big hot air balloon, they didn't get the view over the side. They were the ones that had to pull to make sure that it kept floating. And I think there's as many real life parallels I think there's more real life parallels from Dan Lambert and what he's built at American Top Team with the Blackpool Combat Club. Fighters, zipped up jackets, all of that, the aesthetics. That's a guy that manages a group of absolute warriors, and he's done it for 30 years. And he's an amazing mouthpiece. I'm not saying he's better than Don Callis. I just think he fits the narrative slightly better than Callis does.
I think he's slightly less from the standpoint of look at the kind of approach they've taken with the Blackpool Combat Club. They've taken it as Daniel Bryan's bringing them back to their roots. I think Dan Lambert, and like that's the thing. You sold us on the fact that the parallels between American Top Team and Blackpool Combat Club. Dan Lambert being that mouthpiece would almost go back to like, okay, well, they're kind of going back to comedy. And it's like they're gonna. I don't know if Dan Lambert could go in that same direction as Dan O'Brien's going. Of this, we're going back to our roots of ass kicking. Dan Lambert was best known for his time with the Men of the Year, Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky, as being the guy who would take digs at Brandy Rhodes.
I still do believe though that Lambert is
that direction.
I hear where you're coming from there, especially given that part of it. But I do think that he's capable of. I mean, Lambert is very talented and very charismatic. I think he's definitely capable of being that much more heelish and that much more dominant, because that's kind of how he's viewed in real life by some, right? That's in the MMA space. He's kind of viewed that way by certain people. You know what I mean? You'll talk crap on Dan Lambert, talk crap on American Top Team because they're so dominant. And they're so great, right? And he's not arrogant, but he's confident. And he's kind of that's who he really is, right? And so I think actually the Blackpool Combat Club, him managing them, would be closer to his real personality. I think it'd bring out the best that Lambert has to offer. But Anthony, I want to get your thoughts. Do you hear anywhere where I'm coming from on that?
I know where you're coming from. The only concern that I would have is as far as that, I don't know how much crossover appeal that there is with that audience between MMA and professional wrestling, that they would really grasp what Lambert does. I mean, realistically, because I don't watch the stuff. I know it from you, but like realistically, I don't know how much appeal that is. I mean, Don Callis has been in the wrestling business for what, 30 years, at least, roughly. I mean, he was a Jackal in what, 96, 97, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So, and I think if they're telling the story with the Elite, Don is the tie to that. I mean, did Lambert even have any interactions with the Elite? Realistically, other than Brandy and Cody?
Nothing direct, no.
That's what I'm saying. And so, like, there's not a direct tie there. So that's why Don makes sense, at least for this.
Yeah.
But I would not be opposed if they brought Lambert in to manage somebody if they wanted to do that. I don't know if Combat Club's the right thing for it, because again, there's still the question of, I don't know how long that stable is going to stick around.
See, that's my problem too, is to your point on, I don't know how long it's going to stick around. Dan Lambert's had a 30-year real Combat Club.
Mm-hmm.
Real life one with mountains of success, right? Mountains of UFC champions, mountains of multi-discipline fighting champions. To manage one, I hear where Mark's coming from. Nigel McGuinness, I like that too.
Now, what I
like that too.
What I had suggested, and I think I might have said it on here. I know I said it to you literally WrestleMania weekend when we left Ring of Honor when Nigel came in. I said I would like to see for All In do Nigel in his last match against Bryan one more time. That makes the most logical sense to do that.
And have Dan Lambert. I'm kidding.
You had to stick him in.
I had to just do that. I'm sorry. And shout out Martin, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you for the comments, my friend. Let's move on finally to the main event of the evening.
Mm-hmm.
And I shouldn't have even introduced it by that like that, because this is a somber one.
Yeah.
Superstar Billy Graham passed away this week.
Mm-hmm.
Rest in peace. Absolute legend. We know his, relationship with Flair and the wrestling business, all his accomplishments. Anthony, I'm going to let you start us off.
Okay. There's a lot to cover with Superstar Billy Graham. I mean, there's both good and bad. The bad, obviously, and I'll just get it out of the way. I mean, we know about the steroid use, and there's been the bad, the steroid use definitely negatively impacted the business at points. But the positive is the character the Billy Graham character, the superstar. Triple H referred to Billy Graham at his 2004, I believe, Hall of Fame induction. He referred to him as the first, sports entertainer of the WWF era. You look at people that were directly inspired, maybe ripped off Billy Graham, Hulk Hogan, Jesse the Body Ventura. Triple H was inspired by him. Austin Idol was inspired by him. You can argue that the Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner's character is very influenced by superstar Billy Graham. I think a lot of people forget Billy Graham only held the WWF championship one time, and he held it for about 9.5 months. Had rivalries with a who's who in this business, and he won that title off of Bruno and ended Bruno's final reign as champion. And Bruno held the title for a little over 3 years at that point when Superstar beat him. And one of the most legendary rivalries was him against the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. The story that is being told today, the story that quote unquote needs to be finished, started with Superstar Billy Graham in September of 1977 in Madison Square Garden. That's who Dusty wasn't able to beat, was Superstar Billy Graham. And one of the things I said to you last night, Clark, was if Superstar's health was good enough, and if they would have pulled the trigger and had Cody beat Roman, how awesome of a moment would it have been if they would have brought in Superstar Billy Graham to hand Cody the title? Just visually, just the story being finished, that the guy that his father couldn't beat handed him the championship that Dusty was robbed out of due to a technicality.
Would have been so cool. And man, did that set up for what I'm about to say. And I'm so sorry to do this. But Bully Ray, one of my all-time favorites, mentioned this on Busted Open this morning, and it was genius. And I want to see it. And I think Billy Graham would be so proud of it. One of the most iconic images is Billy Graham destroying the WWF title.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, how great would it be if Roman won that world title and just freaking destroyed it? Just cut it to pieces. I mean, Cody's about to get that one, and then nope. And he just Superstar Billy Grahams him. And that's how we get ourselves to 40. Roman comes back, jumps in, sleaze balls his way into a world heavyweight title match, and he just destroys that title because he doesn't even care about it. He's got 2 belts of his own. There's 3 world titles. He makes a mockery of the whole thing in honor of Superstar Billy Graham to set up for Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns 2 at 40. Rocky 2.
Clark, I get that, but at the same point, as we know, that world heavyweight title, the one that Seth and AJ are going to be fighting for, and I've said this to you, it doesn't finish the story. Like if they try to tell that story of like Cody wins that title, let's say it's off Seth or whatever, that doesn't fit. That's really not the story. The title that's tied is the one Roman's holding.
That's the one. The Billy Graham destroy the title part.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
He's not going to destroy the one that he wants.
No, I agree with you, but at the same point, like I don't know if that has the emotional tie to it, because that's really not the one that finishes the story. So if he turned around and went, you know what, I'm destroyed, and he destroyed the WWE Championship.
Yeah, but I don't think the WWE is willing to do that branding wise.
They're not, but that's the one you have to go.
The new made up one.
If they're changing the design of the belt, they could do that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going from 2 belts to 1. Like, let's say the Universal merges, which they're probably going to do anyway. You're going to probably need another belt in theory, and they like to do it every so often anyway to sell more merch. So, I mean, it's possible, but I know we're getting sidetracked from the Billy Graham aspect of it.
I totally hear you, but I do like him shouting out Billy Graham and destroying the new WWE World Heavyweight. Kobe, what are you thinking? Thoughts on Billy Graham?
I mean, just to sum it up, he'd have to do it with the one that's emotionally attached. That makes no sense to do it. Booking wise, it would make no sense if he destroyed the world heavyweight. Branding wise, it wouldn't. Wouldn't make sense if he did the WWE World Championship. Anyway, I mean, like that's the thing. I obviously I've said this before and many times. I have youth on my side. I don't know a lot about Billy Graham, and I'm looking at Cage Match, and one of the features is there's a lot of fan rating and fan rate matches, and they also rate superstars. And there's one that is standing out to me that was written about Graham, of course, on the day of not the day, but because one of the newest ones up from his passing. So Billy Graham really was the first superstar that wrestling ever had, all pun intended. He had the total package of what a superstar should be long before anyone else thought of it. I guess the cliche phrase to use is that superstar was ahead of his time in wrestling. He had a body like Arnold and Franco Columbo, which was a big deal in his era. A lot of his gift of gab on the microphone and confidence in his abilities mirrored that of a young Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali. He had that incredible tan going on him, the 22-inch arms and biceps. He wore all of those tie-dye and colorful outfits to the ring that made him stand out from the rest of the crowd when he was on television. And he was a karate master at one point, but I try to forget those dark years. He was also just someone you had to turn in to see, not so much for his wrestling ability because he didn't need that, but for what he was going to say or do while on screen. Also, Superstar had all kinds of heat. You talk about someone who could rile up a crowd, he was it. And that kind of
sums it up so well, Kobe. That is such a great tribute to, and that's awesome. I love that too. And in all seriousness, rest in peace, Billy Graham, the original superstar, without question, deserves the nickname. And it's not really a nickname, right? You can barely say Billy Graham without calling him Superstar Billy Graham. We still call the wrestlers in the WWE superstars, and he's a big part of that and deserves that. And his mark on wrestling, not to be forgotten, without question. And that was an awesome tribute, man. I really appreciate it. Any final thoughts, Anthony?
Yeah, I mean, like we've all been saying, I mean, he's an all-time legend. He changed the business, the look, the bodybuilder type, I mean, for good or bad, and his promos. I think a lot of people forget how good he was on a promo because I think over the years, time has passed and, negative things come out. We know he struggled with his health. I do know that, at one point, if you remember years ago, he sold his Hall of Fame ring to pay for medical bills because of the years of the steroid use. And it's a shame because his impact on the business character wise and things that were inspired by, there's no Jesse the Body Ventura. There's no Hulk Hogan. Those characters are direct lineage, ripped off, whatever you want to say, off of Billy Graham.
100%. I'm with you there. And yeah, no, and one of the best figures we've seen in a while, that I believe it's an Ultimate Edition, the one that came out a few years ago.
Oh, you're talking about the Elite? It came with the old head and the young head. Yeah.
Yes, it's a great one. And that's, go buy those to honor Superstar Billy Graham. And yeah, we wish the best for his family and everything like that from everyone here at Wrestling Republic. No question. An absolute legend of the business, and thank you for everything you did for all of us as fans.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely in my heart, especially today. Right.
Yeah.
And with that though, I think that's going to bring us to the end of the show. I mean, it's been a fun one. Throwback Thursday. Thank you guys so much for having us. As usual, we went 60 minutes today. It was a blast. Dynamite, Throwback Thursday. Rest in peace, Billy Graham, most importantly. That's the key. Today, remember him. He's an absolute legend. And if you have time, subscribe, comment, and like. 5-star on Spotify. And we will see you guys tomorrow, I believe, at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern, and 8 o'clock in the UK. And I won't be on the show for the next 3 days, but I will see you guys Monday because I will be back on a Monday for the first time in a while. I haven't been on a mailbag in a long time, but 4 days off in a row, does it seem like I'd be that guy? Of course not. So I will see you all Monday. So on behalf of Kobe Galanzowski and Anthony Ricciardi, thank you guys so much, and we will talk to you soon.